Thank you.
There are two dates that separate out the license years. What are they? March 31st and September?
30,
You sure?
yes.
Your first license will not be for 2 years unless it is issued on April the 1st or October the 1st. Then it would be exactly 2 years. What it says in the notes is the first year will be somewhere between 18 and 24 months. Won't be less than 18, it won't be more than 24. Their favorite question is, they give you an effective date, and then they ask you, when will the license expire? They give you 4 choices. For example, now, the expiration date is going to be one of these two. What we need to figure out is the year. Now, right off the bat, if I look at that, 2 years, if that's the effective date, it will expire when? March 31st of?
21?
Because the answer is that, if that's effective date, it's either 3/31 or 9/30. Now, this would be 19, and this would also be 19. What's the problem with the 30th? Now, remember, here's the number you're looking at. There's the effective date. That's the number you're looking at to decide whether it's going to be March or September. Well, if I say, okay, it's September of 19, that would be 19, I'm sorry.
21.
It would be 21. Well, if you look at September the 30th of 2021, that's more than 2 years. Well, the effective date of the license was 4/5/19, this year. April of this year, it's effective. Sometime in the next 2 years, it's going to expire for the first time. But I know that it can't be less than 18 months, but it also cannot be more than 24. If you say, okay, it's going to expire on September the 30th of 2021, that's more than 2 years from the effective date.
Because it's 4 days or 5 days short, then it's.
Right.
So technically, we could file for that.
Yeah,
So then we're gonna.
you're probably looking at that.
September.
You're probably looking at March
Yeah, March, but March
of 21.
March 31 of 21.
Yeah.
Because you're not quite.
Because the odds are you're not going to have a license by April 5th. When do we finish? Oh, no, you might.
Third.
You might. If we finish the 3rd, you take it to the 4th. But then the question is, when do they actually issue it? Because until it's issued, it doesn't have an effective date.
you consider when you run the classes based on these days? Do you consider these, like when you run the classes?
Not FREC1,
Pardon?
not FREC1, but the post license and the continuing ed, like this Friday and next Friday, 7 hours a day, I'm gonna do the 14-hour course. I just finished the 45-hour course. I do those twice a year. Once for March's expiration, and the other two for September. We do FREC1 4 or 5 times a year. Very popular question. Not a highlight, but from this area, which is actually the first, what's the first page of this section? The heading about licenses, renewal. 49. On that page, they talk about the license year or license period goes over. Question. You allow your first license to expire. What happens?
We will.
Takes it away, you gotta start over.
No.
Involuntarily.
Don't you have like 60
Not a lot
days
of
to try and,
No, you have 7 days or 5 days, I forgot what it was, it's a short
The
duration.
reason you can't figure out how many days it is, because the minute that bell rings, you don't have a license anymore. So you damn straight better make sure you take that 45-hour course and renew the first time, or you get to start over again. Which is why getting into the 45-hour course right away is not such a bad
It's a great idea.
idea.
It's the way to do it.
So we usually want to start one probably in the middle of July to the end
there
of
could be
July.
a distinction if you have a broker's license
What if you don't
instead of a
talk
sales
about-
associate.
Which exam? You have to wait 30, have to wait 30 days. You can retake it. And you fail the 45-hour course, you're gonna need therapy. Because, you see, I'm handing you this one on a silver spoon. I'm giving you the whole tray, 45-hour. And yes, there is a class test. It is 100, multiple choice. You have to get a 75.
So if your license expires, there is no grace period?
Which expiration are we talking about? 1, 2, 3?
The first expiration.
First expiration, yeah.
No grace period?
Nope.
No.
You don't have to think about that. There is no. Now, what if it's my third renewal? And I'm not paying attention, I'm not really using the license, and I forget, I let it expire. Rules are different in that situation. We'll get to that in a few minutes.
Okay.
If I told you I had an inactive broker's license, am I employed?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Am I running my own company?
No.
If I place my license inactive, is it voluntary or involuntary?
It's voluntary.
If you let your license expire,
It's involuntary.
what about this? You're working for a broker and the schmuck loses his license.
What's
your license?
Place to place your license.
Your license is
Involuntary.
involuntarily inactive. But your response is, I didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, you did. You went to the work for the wrong broker. Because you know if you don't have an employer, you don't exist.
You couldn't take your license and go to someplace else.
Yes.
But until you do, you don't exist. And the fact, all right, so she decides to come to work for this company because her broker over here got blown away. So she comes in, talks to Ben, Ben sends her back to Damien, who does the paperwork and the ICA and all that wonderful stuff, and now she's still involuntarily inactive, because until
He registered.
Damon goes online and registered her as employed to us, she's still involuntarily inactive. So creating a relationship between the broker and yourself does not make you active. Once the broker registers you as being, I think they call it creating a new relationship. I don't know if they still use that phraseology. Well, you do know that you do have a fiduciary relationship with your broker. It doesn't matter what brokerage relationship the broker has with the public. You are a sub-agent of the broker. Which is why I keep telling you, you don't exist. Because without the employer, you might as well go home and watch the football game. The most boring thing in the world. If you remember back a couple chapters, we talked about a lot of exemptions for the veterans and for people on active duty with the armed forces. On top of page 50, there's a couple paragraphs, not a highlight, but something you want to take note of. There are provisions to lessen the requirements for somebody to end the armed forces, including the spouse. Because the spouse may have, wherever, what state they were in, may have gone into real estate to supplement the family's income. And now they've been transferred to Homestead from Idaho. This is telling me that whatever application she has to make, they'll give her 6 months to get the Florida license and allow her to continue to function as an agent in the state of Florida. I believe that's what that says.
She wants to sub-rent the
If you want to. I can see this as an area that, between the money part of it and the ability to keep the license. Or if the service member is on active duty and is not accessible to the ability to do continuing ed before the license expires, they kind of put them on hold. Because, you know, if they're in the middle of a foxhole in the Middle East and it's March the 23rd, I don't really think they're going to tell everybody to stop. They have to finish their continuing ed. So they do give them a grace period when they come back. But again, if they were stationed, say, in the United States, and we know that a lot of the services will allow them to have off-base jobs. If that's the case, then they don't have this grace. They have to renew the license just like anybody else. So this provision of going from one state to another, which we talked about, called mutual recognition or reciprocity, this is neither. This is specifically for service members. Questions on that? The next section on 50 is active versus inactive. We've done that about 8,000 times. A broker associate has what kind of license? A broker's license. Do they function? Does a broker associate function like a broker or like a sales associate? Which means?
Reports to the broker.
And has no rights. You only do what you're told. You guys should be able to handle that. Even if you still have one.
Yeah, is
Yeah.
the commission the same?
I'm sorry?
Is the commission the same between the sales?
No. Yes, maybe.
I don't know.
You want to
One of
know,
those three.
you want to know when the commission changes? When you start bringing in more money.
Okay.
By the way,
You need more.
Show me the money.
I have agents, and it's fun to listen to Ben talk about what agents ask him for. Had an agent not long ago, about a year in the business, had done a ton of business. And she wanted Ben to increase her commission rate by 20% because she needed to make money. Guess she hasn't figured out that a higher commission split on the same amount of income still amounts to no income. Put money on the table, and Ben is more than willing to share it with you. He's already given you a raise and you haven't even started with the company. I mean, he's nuts. Give you a 10% raise and you haven't even passed the damn test. Makes sense. So, you can't bitch about the splits there. Although if you'd like higher splits, I'll tell you what, we'll add up all the money we spend on you and charge you a monthly fee for all that stuff we do for you and give you 100%. You should wind up with about 50 after you pay for it. Voluntarily inactive means that I, as a broker or as a sales associate, have chosen to place my license in a status that does not allow me to do business. Never put your license in that. Or don't bother getting it. We have a referral company that isn't a member of the MLS, push comes to shove. But all you can do there is refer. That's still not so bad. If you made 10 referrals that averaged $10,000 in commission on your side, and you typically get 25% of that, you made a nice chunk of change and done what? Nothing?
No headaches.
I don't know about that, but,
Well, not as many headaches.
well, the headaches come in when the person that you referred the agent to that you've been working with screws up. And now they're down your throat. So, if you wind up doing an arrangement like that. Oh, by the way, when you first start, first day you got a listing appointment. You know what to do, right? Do you think you're gonna know what to do as soon as this class is over?
No.
And then my favorite is, I want you to do the contract and everything for me. Well, we'll hook you up with an agent that's experienced that will help you, and you'll share the, oh, no, I don't wanna share my commission. Oh, so you want somebody else to work for nothing? I can't even believe that a reasonable person would have the guts to make a statement like that. No shit. I'm real happy about it. Okay, involuntarily inactive typically means something's gone wrong. Not necessarily by the associate. What if one of the brokers, or the only broker in the company, died of a heart attack? Now we got a problem.
Yeah.
Why?
Because you're not employed.
Well, wait a minute, I have an employer. I wasn't employed to the broker that had the stroke. I was employed to the company.
Okay.
As you will see in chapter 5, the company has 14 days to find a substitute. At the end of that 14 days, what happens to the associate?
Involuntary inactive.
And what do you do about your commissions?
They gotta go to the broker, right?
What about your listings?
They all go with the broker.
Your listings. Doesn't turn out to be a great situation for the sales associate in that case. Now,
Take care of your listing.
It's simple enough.
I give you about 2 weeks playing broker. You probably decide to go home. When you have grown-ups, and you tell them this is what you need to do, and they do just the opposite. I got a 3-year-old who would do a better job at it. It is now my second renewal. I passed the first, which is 45-hour, renewed my license on time. Then I let my license expire on my second renewal. Now, in the first renewal, I would have been dead meat. At the top of page 61, or is it 51? 51, I have a grace period of 2 years. So for example, I have to renew my license a couple times. If I let my license expire, during the first 12 months of it being expired, I need to pay the fee, pay the late fee, and do my continuing ed. And then I'm back in business. But you realize I'm involuntarily inactive until I do that. Different than the first renewal expiration. In the first expiration, there is no grace period. In the second one, there is a grace period, but you can't work. Why? You don't have an active license. That's why you will check every transaction you do. All the agents and companies that are a part of that transaction. And when you look at their records, it should say current/active. If it doesn't, you need to let somebody in upper management know it right away. Because we got a problem. Hopefully it's on the other side. Then, well, the problem's easy if it's the other side, they just don't give me money. Why? You know, they say, oh, wait a minute, but the broker's license was active, but the broker's responsible for making sure it was. They keep track of the associates. They won't get in trouble if the person's inactive or let the license expire, they just won't be entitled to commission.
Is it an only policy of a state agency to send out renewals prior to an expiration?
60 days, yes.
Okay, so I mean, that's a given unless you're blatantly ignorant of your status that you're going to get something in the mail to renew, correct?
Yes, and if you don't, and the license expires, it's your fault.
Well, okay, granted.
So what you're going to do is you're gonna whip out that little phone, you're gonna whip out the thing that says calendar, and you're gonna put the day of the expiration of your first license. And then you're gonna back up and put a reminder a couple places. One won't be enough. Hopefully you've already done the 45 hours. So all we're looking at is making sure you renew on time. If you took the 45 hour, but you didn't renew on time, you're still
Grace period.
gone if it's the first time. You have to do the 45 hour and you have to pay on time that first time. The second time is the top of the page we're looking at right now. Understand that what we're looking at now, where you got that 24 months of grace, is your second and subsequent renewal, not the first one. First one, there's no room for error. Now, what happens if I get into the second year of being expired? Well, I owed them 14 when it expired. If I pay and take the class before the end of the first year of being expired, I'm back in business. If I roll into the second year, I owe them 14 and 14, which is 28. Good. And they have to come into FREC1. They have to take specific chapters within it, and they have to take an exam and pass it. Now, I would assume nobody in this room would have to deal with that other than answering a question on a test. Is that right? Okay.
So
Got too
I
much
have a question.
technology today to remind you.
I have a question. Okay, so right now, we're taking the 63 hours.
Right,
Okay, that's FREC1.
yes,
Okay. Then after that, you pass your test, you take 45 hours.
Continuing ed.
No, that's post, right?
watch, whatever. You're taking post-license or pre-licensing right now.
Pre.
And once you pass the class, the state exam, you will take a
Post.
post. And down the road, you will
14.
continue to education.
So you have 2 years to take the 45?
You have, prior to the expiration date of your
Oh, that's
first
where all that comes
license,
in.
where it'll be 18 to
You
24
have to
months.
take the 45 hours.
And you'll do that the first time it comes up.
And then this is done every 2 years, the 45 and then the 14.
No.
45, no?
The 45 is done once.
Okay.
The 14 is done forever.
So when you say the second renewal, what does that mean?
You already had it expire once. And now
Oh,
it's
that's
the
if I didn't
second.
take it the first time, the 45.
Then you don't have a license.
I don't know, the post.
Right.
So that's when the second date comes in, and the second renewal.
First renewal always.
If you,
I wasn't here the first day,
no,
so I don't know.
if you did a
I'll
timeline,
figure it
it'd be easy. Like if you hit it.
I'm not understanding the second.
I know, I'm just waiting.
You understand what I'm saying? If you just did a timeline, this is when you get the license, this is the first one.
These guidelines are so strict.
And you two stopped off back there, I may just do exactly what you just said. What class you in right now?
Your class.
Free.
What do you want?
63 hours.
There we go.
Which is 63 hours. Of course, as a sales associate. Now what? Post. Class. Exam. Exam. Exam.
All right.
Yeah.
Post?
And that's 45. This is 63. And then
Continue.
Renewal.
continuing ed,
Continue it.
which is taken by everybody. In a 14-hour class, I can have active, inactive sales associates, I can have broker associates, I can have active brokers, I can have inactive brokers, all in the same class.
So nobody's grandfathered. If you're doing this 35 years, you're not grandfathered from the 14.
Have you seen the word grandfather used anywhere? You're in Florida.
Yeah, I know. That's-
You're not anywhere else. You're in Florida. Welcome to Florida.
Not in Kansas anymore. Yeah.
No, don't tell me you're not.
Keep going.
And this is all before your 2-year expiration.
No. This. Oh, I forgot something here. There's an exam here. 14-hour, if you take it online, it's an exam. If you take it in the classroom, no exam. And you might accidentally learn something. Because nothing ever changes in this business.
Sorry.
You know, because obviously I've developed a pretty good relationship with Dearborn here. They say that the book changes about 20% each year. Caused by a lot of different things. Not, obviously, one obvious thing is it changes in law.
Gail, isn't Florida, it's Florida and California are the two hardest states, the most comprehensive hardest states to
Probably.
be in real estate? It used to be a statistic, I think it still is. Florida's either number 1 or number 2.
I would say one, two.
And that's why we don't
California
have
pretty nasty.
reciprocity with very many states, because they're not.
I know that in California at
complexes.
one point, and I have no trouble keeping up with Florida, but, you know, when I get somebody coming in from another license, a state that has a license, I'm always picking the brain. One point, California would let you get a broker's license, but until you had X number of transactions closed, that indicate your ability to manage a real estate office, they wouldn't let you be an active broker. Here, you realize I can become an active broker and open up my own office and never set foot in the state of Florida. Never listed or sold a piece of paper. FREC doesn't care if you make money. FREC's job is to make sure you don't endanger the public in that effort. And the biggest gripe I have currently with new people in the business and the experienced people is you're not learning to speak the language. And words are dangerous in this business. Use the wrong word, you change the interpretation of the contract. When you guys roll into the training, just remember I'm listening, even if I'm not teaching. And have the red pen. It's called compliance. This week, I only had 4 people that aren't getting paid. Why? Files aren't right. That, you see, I don't understand that. I turn the check in the HUD statement. That means my money is sitting in accounting. The only way I can get to it is make sure that my file is complete. So in my mind, I turn that money in, the next thing I do is go right back to my file and figure out, is there anything else I need to do at this point so that Dale will tell me it's complete. So I don't understand why people don't have the documents. They all know, everybody knows that if the file isn't correct. And our friends at FREC, you didn't see the email that Ben sent because he was up at the midwinter meetings of FAR, Florida Association of Realtors. And the word compliance came up. The other word that came up with it was investigating. If I'm not mistaken, I think that as a company, we're supposed to maintain records for a period of time. I don't think we've talked about how long that time is yet.
Isn't it 7? Is it
No.
7 years to change to 5?
You're thinking, you were in the accounting class with the 7, IRS. Real estate's 5.
5, okay.
On page 51, there's a paragraph that says broker's license suspension or revocation. That we've already talked about. But if we understand that without an employer, I can't function, if my broker is suspended or revoked, I'm not employed anymore. But I didn't do anything wrong, yet my status is going to go to involuntarily inactive. Why? I didn't place it inactive. My idiot broker caused it to go there. Now, it's a quick fix. I have to find another employer who registers with the department, and I'm back in business. During the time between my broker being revoked and officially be shut down, and I find the other employer, can I work?
No.
I can't earn commission? Why?
If you find another
Because I'm inactive. So I gotta find myself another employer pretty quick and get that license activated.
What happens with the commissions that are in between? Are they paid in full until you find a new employer?
A phrase I didn't give you before, but it addresses the issue you were asking me. You have to be active to earn it. You don't have to be active to collect. However, there's a concern that you may not be entitled to the commissions already earned. However, it says in the book here that you can, the 14 days I talked about that you'll see later, that they have to get a new broker, you're allowed to maintain the business you have going on. And assuming that we get the broker within the 14 days, the business that began during that period of time, anything that hasn't begun by the point in time when the shutdown occurred, that you can't take on new business. But it makes sense because it wouldn't be fair to the public to be everything shut down, because that puts them in a precarious position. However, the other side of the law says sales associates are not supposed to be operating on their own. But they're only giving you 14 days. So it's something you would have to deal with quickly. I've actually been involved with that a couple times. One, because the broker was found slumped over his desk in the morning when everybody came in. And he was up in years, so they'd been negotiating with a gentleman to come in as the broker of the company. Because the other principals of the company, a couple didn't have real estate licenses, they did the administrative side of the business. And a couple of them were sales associates and had no desire to be the broker, so they needed to bring a broker from the inside. Well, this broker, greedy pig as he was, saw an opportunity because they're basically backed up against the wall. So I known the people, had gone to some of the classes I taught. I offered to be the broker until they found a replacement, which lasted about a month. Of course, if something like that ever happened, you know darn well that people from the department are going to come rolling in there and instruct you as to what you need to do. So is everybody clear with this idea of what happens? But if you go back to what we said, we don't exist without the broker, then I automatically know the answer to that question. And I didn't voluntarily put my license in active. It was forced there. Again, because the idiot I was working for lost their license. Now, in the middle of page 51, they talk about some other license classifications. One of them being called null and void. Sounds like I don't have a license, but I'm just going to take a wild shot. And they give us several examples of it. The first one is if you're involuntarily inactive for more than 2 years. But the catch with that one is that's only if it was your second or subsequent renewal. If that had been your first renewal, you'd be gone already. And the third bullet says failure to complete a post-license education before the expiration of the initial license. And then lines 34, I'm sorry. Yeah, 34. Bracket down to line 40. So I got a bracket from 34 to 40. I want you to highlight lines 34 and 35 and 36. Is this something that the licensee chooses to do?
Yes.
How do you know that?
Henceforward voluntarily?
Right, voluntarily. Sometimes they'll do it voluntarily to avoid further prosecution. In other words, they'll give you the choice of giving up your license and walking away. Something tells me if they gave me that kind of option, I'd probably more likely to take it. Of course, I have a feeling if I'm at that point in the process, I'd probably have my attorney talking,
But you,
because obviously you talk too much.
you've got to do this before they start though, right? Once they start it, you can't involuntarily withdraw? Because it says, provided there is no investigation, disciplinary proceeding pending against the licensee. So you got, it's like to head them
No,
off.
Don't think, because we have to get to chapter 6 or 7,
Right,
we'll talk about that.
okay.
Alright, so if I want to give up my license, because I don't need it anymore, I don't want it anymore, what's the word I'm looking for?
Voluntarily relinquish,
Yeah, one word,
relinquish.
relinquish. But be careful of the word in front of it, because they could put what word? Involuntary. Of course, you wouldn't read over that or anything. And, you know, I haven't brought it up very often. I just moved from Boca Falls to the Everglades. My mailing address has changed. Do I have to notify Mom that my mailing address has changed?
Yes.
How long?
10 days,
Why?
maximum 10 days.
Why?
Where
Because
you
that's
are
the
all
rule,
time.
that's the rule.
Why?
Because Mom says so.
Why?
There's a complaint.
See, a lot of the law is, I say it is because Mom said so. But over the 42 years, Mom has told me a few times why. Because the statute requires to keep the licensees aware of any pertinent information being put out by the state in regards to them or their profession. Therefore, they have to make sure they are maintaining an address that allows them to comply with their requirements under the law. So, if you get Mom in trouble because you don't follow the law and notify them, Mom's probably not gonna be happy. Bottom of page 52. The last two paragraphs starting with line 37, might want to put bracket around
37 to
that.
47?
Page 52, starting with line 37 to the bottom of the page, bracket. Not highlight, bracket. So it's the last two paragraphs.
Zero, quick question.
One second. Lines 43 and 44 are highlighted. Everybody wake up. And there's one thing you're gonna circle. What's the one thing you're gonna circle?
The $500.
10.
What?
10 days, remember the mailing?
Mhm.
What? What was that again?
10 days.
10 days.
Not the 500.
FREC's not looking to penalize you. FREC wants you to follow the law. Mom isn't looking to beat shit out of you if you just do what you're supposed to. I've never been hit by Mom because I did what I was supposed to. Now, if that's not your case as Mom's, then you're abusive.
And then they call up HRS and so what the kids don't realize if they call, you're not going anywhere. They are. Okay. Now, have to be careful. If I'm moving out of state, I can maintain my license with a broker and stay active. But I have to put them on notice that I am now a non-resident of the state of Florida. That's at the top of page 53, next page, next paragraph. It's 60 days. So if they just talk about changing their mailing address, it's 10 days. If they're talking about moving out of state and becoming a non-resident, they have 60 days. Now, the fact that you have a house up in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Georgia, and you spend 3 months a year there, and the rest of the year here, you're still a resident of Florida. So now I have a problem. Obviously, you need to make sure you have your mail forwarded. It's because of while you're up in Georgia, they send out information and it gets to your house and it's time sensitive. You got a problem. See, you have to realize, people, you're not Joe or Josephine Public anymore. You are a licensed professional and you have certain requirements. And the state has certain requirements in the regulation of you. On page 54, I did tell you to highlight lines 43 and 44 on page 52. About the 10 days?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move over to 54. Starting with, on 54 with line 31 where it says change employers, the rest of that page, and then on 56, 55, excuse me. Bottom of 54, starting with line 31 where it says change of employer, bracket the rest of the page, and then there's 10 lines on the top of the next page that's part of it. If I change employers,
Can I take my listings with me?
No.
Can I take copies?
No.
Got your own personal records, but it's not your listing to take, it's the broker's.
So, can I take copies?
No.
Not unless I have the broker's permission. Yes,
What happens when the listings expire?
to who?
I'm a broker, I listed it, you know, a sales association, I listed it with the broker's office. It gives me 6 months to try and sell the house, 6 months, nothing happens. And I've moved away, then what happens? Could I then solicit the client?
Yes,
So that I'm not breaching a fiduciary duty then?
no,
Okay.
because there is no relationship between the broker and the public at that point, therefore you can't breach something that doesn't exist.
Okay.
Because if that was the case, I have a feeling that would be considered unrealistic, you know, what's I'm looking for, restriction of ability to make a living. But understand that you, as a sales associate, have a fiduciary duty to the broker. Therefore, if you take copies of our training program and take it with you to your new company, you probably violated some section of our 85-page policy and procedure manual. Or more. Bottom page. On the very bottom of the page where it says multiple licenses and group licenses, let's do this. I want you to highlight where it says, multiple licenses, just the heading, 2 words. Multiple and licenses. And then starting with line 13, put a bracket from 13 through 16, and carries through line 4 on the next page. On page 56, starting with line 18, let's put a bracket from 18 to 39.
Is that the group license section? I'm in different books.
Yes. On page 56, lines 19 through 23, which is the first paragraph of a group license, I'd like you to highlight lines 19 to 23. Which means if I get a question on the test about multiple licenses versus group license, which one am I going to answer? Group. The question is, if you got a question on the class test, and you had to choose between multiple license and group license, which one would you pick?
Group license.
Why?
Because it's my license.
you'll figure that out on the way home. All right, let's start with multiple licenses, since it was the first one. The reason I highlighted it, you have to study both of them to remember one of them. But in case you don't remember which one of you were supposed to remember, just mark group license. Only a broker can have multiple licenses. You'll see that in the notes. At the bottom of page 55. If a broker has multiple licenses, does that mean he actually has more than one license?
No, not active.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily will never be used in this class ever again. When you're talking about law, it's not maybe. It's either yes or it's no. And you need to stay out of the maybe, because the maybe is gonna cost you points. You think too much.
That's a good thing.
Just a little.
Not here, but it's a good thing.
Because a maybe means you're thinking about it, which means with the way they word questions, you get yourself in trouble in a big hurry.
Where can I buy the answers for the test?
Where can you buy the answers to the test?
That's what I want to know.
You already have, you paid $50. Do you think maybe he hasn't figured out what the highlighted means? Maybe you need to go to the front of the book and write, highlight past test. Ignore highlight, try to figure out what I should know, failed test. Yeah, been doing this since 9 o'clock so far. Okay. If I'm a broker with multiple licenses, does that mean I have more than one license? Or I'm the broker for more than one company? Okay. That statement is true. But I have to ask you a question. Multiple means one or more than one?
More than one.
And licenses means one license or more than one?
More than one.
But you're not sure whether multiple licenses means more than one license. Because you can't read. And I'm trying to have to teach you. No.
You don't need multiple, you just need one big license.
Yeah, one big license. You mean like that stuff here? How many companies do we have within Signature?
Multiple.
Multiple, 22,
20-some?
20-some.
Who's the broker of all of them?
Ben?
Broker? Ben is the broker for all those companies. And every time you create a company, there has to be somebody there with a broker's license. So every time, Kristen, I used to do it, and Kristen's is doing it now. There are 2 forms you fill out. One for the company to make it a broker, and one for Ben to make him the broker of the company. Ben is the very best example of multiple licenses. But the fact that you can't figure out that multiple licenses means more than one concerns me. Damn good thing it wasn't a snake.
But he only has to renew one big license. It's regular.
No, he has to renew all of them. He only has to take one continuing ed.
One course. Just renew all of them.
Yeah, and every license has a fee.
Right, but he only has to take
But
one CE every 2 years.
he has to have a broker associate at each one of those. He can't be there at all times.
Doesn't have to.
Don't have to. So I as an associate can be in charge of a branch?
No,
It's being a broker.
You're thinking about a manager.
Remember, it's an
Association has no bearing on the license itself. See, my confusion was this: multiple licenses for multiple locations versus multiple licenses for multiple business under the auspicions of a broker.
there's no such things as multiple branch offices
Correct.
are not broker licenses.
Doesn't a broker need to be responsible of another office if you're maintaining?
The office is not a broker. The office is registered, and there has to be a broker there in order for that company to do business.
Okay, so,
We are in Florida. In Florida, you do not have to have a broker in each office.
okay, Ben is actually the broker of all the offices.
That's why he has multiple licenses.
Right, no, okay. Yeah,
Who's supervising the business in every one?
Who supervises? Ben does.
But how? You can explain.
He's the boss, he can.
That's it.
He's the boss.
So in each of his different entities,
Mhm.
he has a broker's associate? Or-
No?
Maybe he has a secretary.
Oh, yeah.
There are office managers for
Broker
each
associates
office.
in the company. They are broker associates because they have a broker's license, but don't want to open up their own office, and they're still working as an associate for the company.
So they make more money supervising all the people.
You make more money, not with the license you have, but how much you work.
So,
Has nothing to do with the license. The license just determines whether you can do it on your own or not. If I'm a broker, I can do it on my own if I want to. If I don't want to, I can go to work or stay working with who I'm working for. Your commission rate is not tied to the license. It's tied to the cash you're putting on the table. I don't care if you got every license in the world in real estate. How much money did you put on that table this year? That's gonna determine your split.
Can Ben originate alone and
No,
act as a, okay.
no, because financing is not one of the 8 services of real estate, so I can't even believe you asked me that.
I noticed that he, doesn't he own like a mortgage loan?
Well, he may have an MLO, yes.
Okay, but it's separate, he can't do both on the same deal.
No. He doesn't do that. He's got the lot.
Can any
Too much
realtor
tax
do that? Yeah, here, signature, mortgage, and lending.
That's more of a service and not a
But
lender.
Signature Mortgage and Lending is a partner with a mortgage
separate
company
entity.
here in town.
Okay.
See, the affiliated businesses of the company, most of them, well, 2/3 of them, are a partnership between that entity, whether it's mortgage or title or whatever, and Signature. Signature is part owner of Signature Title. Wow, what a shot. Signature Finance is a partnership between Signature companies and that mortgage company. They added the word signature for a reason. Trying to create an environment for you so that anything your customer needs is never away.
One-stop shopping.
That is if you use them. Well, you know what? You want a raise? Shit. You did 14 sales involving financing with a buyer. You didn't use our mortgage company one time out of 14. If you were the broker, how quick would you want to give her a raise? Raise.
Don't you have to disclose the interests of other companies with the prospective purchaser or seller?
Mhm.
And that has to be disclosed prior to
Do
any...
you know what it's called?
I'm sorry?
Do you know what it's called?
No.
Real Estate Settlements Procedure Act.
Oh, RESPA, okay.
Remember, 42.
I don't remember anything.
I do. 42 years ago.
More than 42 years.
All right. There are lots of transaction brokers. Like I said, the best example of a transaction broker, of a multiple license broker, is Ben. By the way, FREC does not like multiple licenses. Except for the way we do it. Why? Because in most cases, we got 3 sales associates. They each want to open up their own office. So I'll be the broker for all 3. I register the 3 companies. I register as their broker. They each pay me $500 a month, and they don't call me for anything. Just make sure my check is there, or I'll shut you down. That's the typical multiple license situation. That obviously is not what FREC likes. We have a ton of supervision here. And it's not always done by them. We even have a source to go to if you need help. If you got questions. It's called Sarah.
Can you give me the acronym for what is Sarah?
Sarah is a gal.
No, I thought it was a
How about let me,
abbreviation.
if you're gonna answer the question, give me a chance to answer it.
Okay, well, you can just give me her number. Being
She's funny. She's
Dale,
funny
being
for her.
facetious, Dale, being facetious.
561-766-0272. One of the few women that will probably be nice to you. Unless you aggravate her. You don't want to aggravate Sarah. Here's why. You have to realize that if you don't like the answer that one Sarah call gave you, and you decide to go another, we talk to each other. So we already know.
I thought Sarah was an abbreviation for something.
It is.
It is.
Okay.
It stands for Signatures, Agent, Resource, and Helpline.
Ah,
It doesn't say, do the work for you. If you don't know how to fill out a contract, get your ass in class. Oh, I'm too busy. Okay, then we'll hook you up with someone, and you can share your commission, and so you can do it by yourself. Oh, no, we want you to do it. I don't want to give up any of my commission. Oh, okay. Yeah, have a nice day. I think it's disgusting. All right. This ought to be really interesting. Group license. How many licenses would now, only brokers can be multiply licensed. Broker associates and sales associates can have what they call a group license. As a sales associate, if I qualified for a group license, how many licenses do I have?
Single one license.
One or more than one?
One.
Why? It says license, if I'm not mistaken, in the English language means one. For those of you where English is your second language, you'll notice that the people that speak English, English is also their second language. I had a class one time. I don't know, for whatever reason, they legitimately had a problem with the terminology. And they used to refer to it as FREC1.
My favorite class was I had 5 brokers from Massachusetts in one class.
Oh,
We used to
good.
argue with each other over Massachusetts law. For those of you that have licenses from out of state, remember what I told you the first night, you're not gonna forget what you know. You have to play column A and column B and see the difference. Then you can remember the difference. You can't just try to say, well, I'm gonna forget what I've learned in the last 25 years. Yeah, right. Sure.
Dale, I won't miss a single word you say. Can we have a bathroom break now?
What time is it?
9 o'clock almost? I think, no?
No.
Wait. what
8
time?
o'clock.
8 o'clock. 8, sorry.
Is this exactly 8?
59.
Yes.
59? Okay, take a break. Everybody take a break. Break's over.
How long is break?
30 minutes.
10 minutes. 2 days.
I'm sorry. In advance.
Mañana lasaña, por favor.
I know we don't have to hear it.
If it's Bill, the focus that's really made up.
Thank you.
Yeah, I bet you. Yeah.
All the families come down.
It's the nature of the beast, though. It's the nature of the beast. It's a whole other beast in its own. Because, like Thursday, one of our main, data centers went down, so we were at like, working at maybe like half control. So Citibank resource banking there, because we'd only do like deposits and withdrawals, we couldn't do like transfers or payments or anything on Thursday, we worked all day, but on Friday, they forced us to work an extra hour. Wasn't even an option. I'm like, excuse me. Oh, we're gonna get it in, but just know that you're gonna get like in the first half there. I get yelled and cursed at and like shit thrown at me more as a baker than I did as a bartender.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's my fault, they smelled their money and got over that. Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well,
Oh, okay.
Enough said, right?
My boy used to work there.
Oh, yeah?
He got fired though. He was opening up accounts with like, for illegal people. He got paid great money though.
Oh, yeah.
But then he got caught.
Yeah. They're a decent company to work for. Yeah, I get a lot of years people that come in. Like firms that are, that do construction, or all different stuff that come in, and they're easy to call. They're like, doing the certificate, like, I can't. I did, give me like 2 years, but I can.
Yeah, right? I have two good friends that work for this company.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
So, how do you know Bobby?
About, let's see, whoop, about,
Is his father still alive?
about 26 years ago, I'm on vacation with my family in St. Martin, waiting to check into the resort. He's there with his wife and his kids. My kids are older and stuff like that. And we hung out on the, like together on vacation. And maintained our friendship. My wife was working in a store in the Roslyn area. She got Merrill, who's Bobby's wife, a job over there. Whenever I had something like any kind of Simco or something like that, I could use them for occasion or whatever it is. Always use them and stuff like that. We're friends. His father, when I lived in Long Beach as a kid,
His father's off
Jerry,
the
well, he's dead.
Oh, when did he pass away? Had to be the last couple of years.
15 years ago. It was hard. It was very hard. And his mom got really sick. She had ALS. She passed away. It was like really something. But when I was a little kid, I grew up in Long Beach.
Right.
And in Long Beach, on Riverside and Park,
Okay.
was the delicacy shop, which was an appetizing store.
Right.
Jerry worked there.
Oh, is that
He was an
right?
accountant guy over there. Yeah,
Okay.
the appetizing store.
Everybody learns from somebody else, right? Yeah, no, he was in the five towns for years. He had to be at least 35 years, if not
Yeah,
more.
yeah.
He was back in when it was, five towns.
Mhm.
Yeah, nobody's good.
But that whole area has drastically changed so much that if you're not one of the crew, forget about it over there. Or the Orthodox kids a lot over there. If they don't, you got to do it their way, or it's their way or no.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, so all the businesses closed down. I watched the downfall of the whole area, from the movie theater, pushing all the Kelly's out, the ice cream place, all the bars. There was so many bars in Central area. Now Brighty O's is gone too.
We had a cabana at the Sands.
Okay.
And
Set away from them, when the kids are small.
there was a guy, Dave, who had a cabana next to mine, and he was, there was like no mayor or whatever it is, but he's almost like the quasi-mayor over there. A lot of the community
There's a mayor of
activities.
Lawrence, there's a mayor of Cedarhurst,
I don't think there is.
there's a mayor of Woodsbury.
You live, so either one or the other. But he was very involved in like everything going on over there.
Now that I haven't cleaned 2 years, you have to do the project. And every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
I know a lot
Every
of
time
business
you
owners in
second
Whitby,
renewal,
because
that's the
they
second
lived
year.
in Whitby for a
Yes.
short period, and we moved to
Whatever.
back Lawrence.
Every 2 years, okay, so you do this one, the 40,000 every 2 years. And then when he says renewal,
When I came, it was still
it's the second year from that.
the best station of Boston.
Write it out.
That's
The
where
hunt
that.
club and people,
Yeah.
everybody on my block was there. And, little by little,
Woodsburg
knockdowns
is,
and
Woodsburg is gorgeous.
yeah, no, I have friends who lived in Woodsburg too. Matter of fact, my periodontist lived in Woodsburg, Schneider, a bunch of guys. Mukama lived in Woodsburg. Dentist. Yeah, but that
My
changed
friend,
too.
a good friend of mine who moved down here, his brother-in-law and sister living in Woodsburg. And his
That
brother
one's right away, it's gives you
is
18
a
to 24
very
months.
good physician.
So this is.
He doesn't accept any medical insurance anymore. My friend's father was also a doctor in the Five Towns and had a very big practice in the Five Towns. He passed away.
And then all I
I
have to
started
worry about
living
is
there
this
a couple
one.
years ago. And they're proposing building 300 houses.
They sold it? Or
Yeah,
they don't
no,
just sold it?
they sold it. It
So
was
the golf
sold,
course is-
it was not, golf course is still there, it's still an operating club. They agreed to operate the club for 60 months thereafter. But the whole intention was is to build houses up there. And now there's an uproar because one segment did it once because they wanted the new houses, and another segment, the older regime, wants, to keep the status quo.
Maintain the architectural integrity of
Yeah, it's all bullshit, because, there's more crowd in this, and listen, it's a one-lane, West Broadway, it's a one-lane, and it was crowded when I first moved in 30-some-odd years ago. So it's,
Yeah, so it's not really how we like.
even the last realtor, Barry Puget, just sold out about a year ago. He was down the block from Bobby, and he opened up about, just about the time I opened up. He sold out too, there's nothing like it. If you're not, if you're not a crew member, that's who's doing the business over there,
I'm sorry.
It was nice for my kids when they grew up. They saw the demise when they came into the school district. They had programs in for Saturday, and that started to away with. Then they took over the school board.
He used to sell real estate in Long Beach.
Yeah, I did some, I put everywhere. I had a couple of offices. I had one on Grand Avenue. Yes, 25 grand. I bought ERA Low Power, which was across the street from FREC1. Familiar with that deal? I'm talking about Ellington, the shopping center, from Grand Avenue. And I had, my main office was right next to Foley's, East Rock Road. So where the Gold Arenas, I put up on restaurants knocking the white door. I have psoriatic arthritis. And it was really the catalyst that I can't tolerate COVID. So, my kids were reluctant, we've been there about 3 years, now everybody's adapted, it's fine. As a matter of fact, we just came back from New York, dang, I'm so glad. Oh, down here, we like some shit all. So I went to all my homes, went to Luger's, my kids are gonna be 22 and 26. So they're still on payroll, but they're finishing up school.
Oh, this way.
Kids are 38, 35.
I'm sorry?
38, 35.
Well, you started when you were 12. You gotta be a little older than me.
I'm a little older.
How old are you, 71?
I'm 67.
Yeah.
The story I like to tell about Long Beach, because it's all real estate. I was young, I was in June, and most of the times when I was a kid, I was shot.
Oh, is that right?
And this, the demographics of Long Beach, so.
Back then or now?
The West End.
Well, Lido wasn't Lido
The
yet.
West End Long Beach was always Irish and Italian. The area near the railroad is always black and
You
Hispanic.
think?
And the rest of Long Beach,
It still is.
and the rest of Long Beach,
Yeah, no, historically, right, close by the water, there's a building.
So like, put a little guide to the demographics Texas, Long Beach.
It's like a
Long Beach.
refresher. The first
Oh,
one.
yeah.
Irish and
If it's
Italian,
the quiz.
took over one bit. The blacks and Hispanics.
And New Orleans, they don't, they sort of.
I think it's something back of all.
And that described Long Beach.
That was the same high school, it's in Lido Beach, by the water, right?
Right next to Belleville, right next to Belleville.
It's harder than.
It's changed quite a bit.
My parents, my father never had
Just like when I
anyone.
got my broker's license.
In 1956,
The first renewal, my broker's.
they were looking at houses to leave Brooklyn.
You work
There
in
was-
Brooklyn.
But then my next renewal,
He bought,
I could just do online.
he was looking in Brighton, and he was looking in Long Beach.
You upgrade your license from.
I ended up buying a house in Long Beach. He spent $55,000.
Ooh, big money.
You gotta.
He sold the house
It's 45 hours.
for $56,000.
So
Because
it's like starting all
when he
over.
sold his house,
But you're held
the
to
city was in disarray, it was a
accountability because
shithole.
you had more money.
And
When did you?
Jerry
leave?
Kramer,
Like the
he
70s?
left about
Managed.
3 or 4 years too soon.
Management.
Because Jerry Kramer was the local assemblyman, who became like very powerful in the
Yeah, the
negotiation.
second renewal, you're.
And that's when they got money
Better
from Long
off,
Beach.
better.
And they just plowed down the area by the train station and rejuvenated the whole
Put
city.
up the hockey rink.
And the whole, the hockey rink was there and stuff like that. It was
I
just,
used to watch the Rangers play practice.
After you
the
do
Rangers,
that,
the Rangers
pass
used to
the
practice
state
in Long
exam.
Beach. In fact, my best friend, his family owned the West Hall Garage, which is on New York Avenue.
I didn't do that.
Long Beach was just, it was like the home for newlyweds in the early days. They were getting money from the state to have mental,
Yeah.
like,
Because they don't, the
hospitals
state
there.
doesn't care when
Because
you
the
do
taxes in
it.
Long Beach were high, they were looking for state money to try and reduce the taxes. Basically,
Taxes is still high in Long
yeah,
Beach.
they,
It's a separate city on
they,
itself.
but they just
And
effed up the
closed
town.
there was a hospital after the storm, after
Long Beach
Sandy.
Hospital.
They closed down and the senior center right next door. I mean, they're right on the water. They closed down.
Because it's hard.
It actually, it changed for the better. And they put up the Allegra Hotel, it's been bankrupted, foreclosed on 9 times
I had
before.
friends in
The
my.
same guy who owns the Garden City Hotel put that up.
It's like FREC1.
He renovated, it was a Hoffman
The
Manor.
problem with Long Beach, for a hotel like that in Long Beach, it's so hard to get in and out of Long Beach. Long Beach is at the end of the road, kind of, a little bit. As against big, as against other hotels though in the city, it's so much easier to get in
Oh, yeah,
and out
that
from the
right,
city
yeah,
and stuff
right.
like that. It's a pain in the ass to get.
Well, it's truly a resort.
But it's on the,
Hotel, it's not like in.
it's a resort because it's on the beach.
Right.
That's why.
It's a nice piece of property.
A few months before.
The old house, not Hoffman Manor, the old,
I did better
what
with
was
math
it?
because
Sharp.
it's more practical.
Maybe they were sharp.
Right, yeah, but then they made it an adult home for a number of years, and that's when they turned into the Allegra. I remember going to Long Beach as a kid, it was like, transient bullshit.
I worked at Slidell's ski park.
Well, it's very different now, so you really wanna get,
And then Atlantic Beach is starting to turn,
Orthodox.
and
because right after I sold, I had to stay another year and a half, so I rented Atlantic Beach. And I'm seeing what's coming into Atlantic Beach, you know, look at it, just a force driven from,
but now you've got the technology
it
and
was nice,
um,
it was nice growing up.
younger people.
I like kids
use
over
your
there.
time well.
I had some friends that moved from the North Shore, but initially when I first came to town, I did a lot of business in Brooklyn and Queens. I didn't need to, this 35 minutes from,
Still have to follow. How you get to
great next door,
it's different now.
Port
Used to be
Washington.
set up houses and way back years ago and pick up buyer leads. Now everybody can walk through an open house.
So what
Here,
community is it?
five of them.
What communities are you in?
We're renting.
It's not like, it's not the same. It's not the same. It's very different.
Palma
Very different.
Vista, it's 441 and Blaze, right over there.
Please start with your sphere of influence.
There's like a Home Depot, and there's a Publix in there, and, yeah, it's,
I was thinking another two weeks.
There's no housing in there.
no, there's a community, it's a
Oh,
community.
on the other
rental
side,
community.
oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not too far from the Boca Regional Hospital.
Well, okay, it's on the right-hand side going towards Del Rey, right?
Can't figure out other
Yeah.
things to say. You can't say I've got all this experience.
So you're looking
You gotta
to
find some other angle.
buy? Looking to buy?
No. We just came down here and just orienting, seeing if we like it.
Oh, you still have your house up north, then?
No, we got out.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna stay in that place for a while. When the kids go out, probably go to, still in paper.
It's a golf community.
I live in a golf community. We're both-
It's just people that were looking, they don't want to do it because they don't want to pay for it unless they put it on.
I moved into, it's called Boca Beach. And at one point, it was, you don't have to buy in if you don't want to, it's a non-equity. But now my HOA is fighting with, the golf course. I mean, you can be a member of the golf course.
Okay, let's get back.
Boca Beach closed the courthouse.
Let's take a look at the other type, which is the group
My
life.
townhouse, that is a big, that's a big, oh, that is a beautiful community. It's gated, this, their cars.
The market is gated, it's around, but it's gated.
Who can have multiple licenses? Can a sales associate have multiple licenses?
No.
Then what's a group license? Group license is not a broker. It's either a broker associate or a sales associate.
It's not what? Oh. But they have to be registered under an owner developer, is that right?
What about this? Now, these are actually fictitious things that really exist. Three different projects owned by the same developer. But most likely, you will see that they are probably LLCs if you actually look at the name. This reason, they started out with land. Who bought the land?
Developer? Geo, I mean,
Maybe.
maybe, right.
But to keep it simple, let's assume that's the case. Now, you are working for Geo Homes. Right now, there are 3 projects going. Monday through Friday, they want you to work at the bridges. Then on Saturday, they want you to work on 7 bridges. And then on Sunday, they want you to work at Public. Bridges. Now, I think we have a problem.
No, they don't.
We have multiple employers. I don't think we can have multiple employers. Yes.
Aren't you working under GM, and because you're a developer on all the properties, you don't need to hold a real estate license if you're working for the developer on a specific development, you know?
But I'm not. They've got me jumping around.
So if GL owned the other three, it's still no good?
Different employers. They're different companies. You don't think that Juno Home, while all that land is one piece. Now,
This is where we're like.
exactly, that's what I'm trying to get to. Here's what they want to do. They want to create a group. I watched a brokerage firm that was also a developer when we were at the commission's meeting September, I think, October. And they wanted to do that. They were granted permission to do such. Because the attorney was there. And what has to happen is, all of those entities have to agree in writing that they are really controlled by the same individuals or group of individuals. Therefore, they're not really separate. So now FREC looks at them like a group. So that whole picture is one employer now. Now the sales associate can go to work and can bounce from project to project. Now, I don't know for sure, but that's what GL Homes does. I have a problem with it.
You have a problem with this?
With this? Not from a legal standpoint, from a business perspective. By admitting to the state in writing that they really aren't separate, they're really one, what does that do to the liability?
They fall under one.
If I was their attorney, I'd have a stroke.
Right, because if somebody sues them at Seven Bridges, it's gonna affect the others.
They have now created the bridge.
But you said they're limited liability corporations under the same ownership of the same people. So each is a separate entity within the group.
But it's still one.
But
If you have
by saying that we're a group,
All right.
we are legally saying that we're really not separate. Because we're controlled by the same individual or group of individuals.
Okay, granted. But
There's where the legal problem comes in. I don't have a problem with the business side of it.
But still, from a legality, if there's an issue with one of the groups, then it's contained within that group as being a
And your lawyer's
limited
gonna say,
liability
"Good luck with that."
corporation.
But understand that this is the group.
I understand that, you can sue, but I guess from an attorney's point of view, you would sue the individual group and then sue the group as a whole,
No,
based on
No,
legal
I come
liability.
after the group as a whole.
because it's one group.
It's all one.
It's all connected.
All right, so if I'm going to view a property at Seven Bridges and I trip and fall,
Now, understand this. I use GL Homes, and I probably shouldn't have done that, because I don't have a clue how they're structured. So I can't answer your question.
okay.
Well, they want to.
All right,
All I
so,
want you to understand is what a group license is.
You could have used the name Lennar, I mean,
Yeah.
they got a bunch of,
Or
Alright, so-
ABC.
yeah,
so
yeah,
if,
but it,
so currently, I'm in the Signature School of Real Estate.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the Signature School, under the umbrella of all the other signatures, this and so forth.
Yeah.
So if I have a misstep and an issue here, my legal remedy would be through the school, correct? I'm not going to say, well, I had an issue with this
Don't even go
this
there.
part of the group and so
No,
forth.
because
No,
it's
you'd
not a
be
group
able to Come
license.
after the whole company.
It's not a group license.
That's why
But
we
they
got answers
register
and
as a
issues
group.
insurance.
what I don't
It's a separate
understand, and I understand
broker.
group licenses, I've worked for developers,
Broker's
but the
license
thing is,
issued.
I don't know, what I
think
don't
that then
understand
each
is,
of these
why
businesses
would
is a separate
FREC
license. It's
consider
not
this, or the
a
DVP
group.
one, consider this branch offices? It's almost like, if you have a real
I
estate
think-
brokerage, you've got your main office, and then you've got branch offices, if they're
But
all
these
under
are
still the
different
same
companies.
name.
It's a-
But
For
there's-
companies, not
Yeah.
offices.
Yeah,
there's no-
okay, but it seems like.
If they were all the same company, then all these are branch
Branch
offices.
offices, right.
One of these days I can find somebody to talk to, because I'm curious. The point being is, the minute they agree that they are actually interconnected, then they qualify to be able to have an associate who normally could not bounce from property to property to be able to do that now. But that would only mean something to a owner developer. Wouldn't mean anything to a broker with a real estate office. If I want to multiply something, I go multiple licenses like Ben. So you can't relate group licenses to Signature International Real Estate. Questions? Okay. Chapter 4. I'm sorry, it's not chapter 4, it's unit 4. I normally do not have you read ahead. However, I do want you to read chapter 4 for homework. I don't want any marks in the book, I don't want any notes made, I just want you to read through it.
In addition to questions for you.
But I just want you to take 10 or 15 minutes and sit through it. When you talk about brokerage relationships, who's the brokerage relationship between? Seller and the buyer? Absolutely not.
Between the salesperson and the broker.
I accept that answer, but it's not the one I'm looking for. I definitely don't like the first one.
you restate the question?
Yes, okay. When you talk about a brokerage relationship, who are the people in that relationship? There are two answers. Because to have a relationship, there has to be two people, minimum, if I'm not mistaken. Once you have a relationship with yourself.
Is it the person performing services and the person receiving the services?
It's really a threesome, isn't it? I mean, your brokerage,
Excuse me?
you. Your brokerage, you, and then how you conduct yourself with the buyers and sellers. Isn't it a threesome?
Who are you?
The public says,
Who are you?
public,
When I step in that door, who are you?
agent,
Agent. You don't get that straight, this chapter's gonna eat you alive. And you know that the brokerage relationship is between the broker and the public, not you.
The book says contrary to what you said.
I didn't ask you to look in the book.
That's where I got the answer from.
And where's your contradiction?
Real estate broker is the business of bringing together buyer and seller.
That's brokerage, not brokerage relationships. You keep digging, you're not gonna find something. I've been through this book 42 times. How important is the discussion of commission in this chapter? Don't look. You know that the heading is brokerage relationship. Does everybody get that now?
Yes.
How important is the commission?
It's always important.
Irrelevant. A brokerage relationship is not about money. It's about your duties and responsibilities to the public. Because if you screw that up, I don't give a shit what your commission rate is, you ain't getting anything, including the license. This is the chapter where that door routine was made for. If the broker is a single agent in dealing with the public, as the sales associate, what are you? You're a single agent. Whatever the broker's relationship is with the public, so is yours. Because this is not really a discussion about the relationship between the broker and the agent. We can get that out of the way real quick. You have a fiduciary relationship between you and the broker, regardless of what the broker's relationship is with the public.
Say that one more time, please.
Regardless of the brokerage relationship with the public that the broker chooses to use, has nothing to do with the relationship between you and your broker. You are a sub-agent of the broker with fiduciary responsibility. So when you go out to take a listing, you are acting on behalf of the broker. You sign the listing agreement on behalf of the broker. The broker, by the way, is not there. It's the company, whichever one you wind up being a part of. Because you look at the top of the listing agreement, you've got the seller's name, and you've got the broker's name. But when you look in the space where it says broker, it's Signature International Real Estate, or one of the other companies, whichever one you're a part of. What is the relationship between the public it is an arm's length kind of relationship
Right.
between the buyer and the seller, landlord, tenant, is an arm's length relationship. On pages 65, 4 and 65, they talk about the law of agency. Two words that always go with the law of agency is trust and confidence. The agency relationships, as they say on 64, is created through common law, through statutory law, and through administrative law. Now, wait a minute. Statutory law would be the legislature. Administrative law would be
Law created by administration.
would be FREC and the department. Because their job is to administer the law. So, question. If I wanted to know in the state of Florida what kind of brokerage relationships I am allowed to operate as a broker, where would be the definitive place to go?
No.
475?
475. There is a section in 475 devoted to the brokerage relationships, to the detail that embedded in 475 are the actual forms you're supposed to use in making the brokerage disclosure. If you're in a fiduciary relationship, how do you refer to the public? What do you call them? Customer or client? Another name for client? Principal. Customer means that you are in a brokerage relationship, but you're not in a fiduciary relationship. Now, what would make one different from the other?
One has a contract.
No, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with,
First meeting?
how, can you just do me a favor once tonight? Out of my mouth first. As an agent, I forgot what I was going to say. A client versus customer. The word client is tied to the word agency. The word principal is tied to the word agency. The word agency is tied to fiduciary. So if I tell you that one of the brokerage relationships that a broker can operate under is as a single agent, is there a fiduciary relationship between the broker and the public?
Yes.
How do you know that without looking at the notes? I use the word agency, or a single agent. We do not function as single agents. There's a fundamental problem with being a single agent.
Can you represent both sides in the same transaction?
And not as a single agent.
I think that's what we're talking about. Now, question, as a single agent, can I represent both sides in the same transaction?
And you buyer and seller, or you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
You've got a
All right,
transition.
no. Tornadoes on, which means mouth doesn't move. Single agent
no.
can represent one side or both.
One.
Thank you, that's why it's called single.
Why are you making me doubt myself, man?
You need two transaction brokers.
So that it doesn't happen on the test.
Sorry, question.
I'm gonna challenge, so you can't just give me an answer. You give me a reason. Because if you can give me a reason, I know you're locked in. And no matter how they ask the question, you'll be able to deal with it. So, everybody understand that? Plus it's fun. Yes, sir, yes, ma'am.
Sorry, so when you purchase a home, you can't go to the buyer's or the seller's agent? You can't represent them.
You need to.
You can't represent both parties.
You need to transition from a single agent.
It's asking the lawyer to represent the defendant and the plaintiff.
I don't care what you think. I'm not interested in your opinion. You should be more interested in mine. This is why I don't normally have people read ahead, and I'm seriously considering that now. As a single agent, by its very name, I know two things. There's fiduciary, because of agent. And number two, I can't represent both sides in the same transaction. Well, that obviously in itself creates a problem. Because we have a lot of two-sided transactions. Question. You have a brokerage firm. There's one broker. There are two offices. In one of the offices, one of the associates takes a listing as a single agent. And the broker functions as a single agent. An associate in the other office finds a buyer and is working with the buyer under single agency. The buyer of one office wants to see the listing that the other agent has. And then decides they want to make an offer. Do we have a problem?
Yes. That's a conflict of
No.
interest.
problem.
There is no problem.
No problem.
Two parties. If everybody's a transaction broker, you don't have a problem, but.
Did I mention transaction broker?
No, you didn't.
Okay.
You're
So
saying single
you're not gonna
agents.
answer my question using those words. I know how to fix it. That's not what I'm looking for. I want to know if we have one brokerage firm, same broker, but we have branch offices. One of the agents in one office takes the listing, the other one has the buyer. The company functions as a single agent.
Oh.
Are we okay since it's two different agents? In different offices? Not different companies, but different offices.
When you said the
Do we
company,
have a problem?
you said a single agent cannot represent both parties.
Representing both parties.
There's only one broker, you said single agent.
I don't see it being a problem.
Okay. I'm listening.
Just making a statement.
You can't make statements that you don't have a reason.
Okay, if one agent is representing one side, whether it be the listing or the and the other agent is representing the sale, then they're both single transactions and not dual transactions of the same salesperson.
But you just stated it's a single agent.
It doesn't matter because the broker is a single agent.
Whether it's
You
one
have
or
the
to
same
sell.
whatever the relationship the broker has with the public is the same relationship you have. And if the broker is a single agent, you cannot represent both sides in the same
Because
transaction.
he's got a fiduciary responsibility, right?
Now, let me remind you of something. The relationship here is between the public and the broker, not the two associates. So the company is functioning as a dual agent, which in today's world is illegal in the state of Florida. So what do they have to do? They have several options.
Retain the services of his separate agent.
Which I'll get to later. On page 64,
It's very confusing.
starting with line 33,
It's very
I want to put a bracket around the rest of the page.
Which page is this?
64.
64.
Line
All right, everybody do me a favor, okay? We gotta stop this, everybody talking at the same time, especially when I'm talking. You'll get your chance, trust me. At the bottom of the page, on line 33, it says fiduciary relationship. Bracket 33 through 37, that actually carries through to line 6 on the next page. So we're at the bottom of 64, starting with line 33. Carrying through line 6 on 65. I want you to highlight, starting at the bottom of 64, at the end of the line where it says people dealing at arm's length. At the very bottom of 64 in the right-hand corner. Continue lines 1 through 6. Highlight. So the relationship between the public is arm's length. Adverse. There are two other types of agents that they mentioned here. On page 65, lines 7 and 8. It talks about a general agent versus a special agent. Line 9 gives you a definition of a general agent. And then on lines 22 and 23, you have the term special agent. Now, this term special agent is a broad term defining the different types of brokerage relationships allowed under the state of Florida. At the bottom of the page, I want you to highlight line 28, where it says brokerage relationships in Florida. But make a note that it's not a question. It continues on to the next page. Lines 1 through 7. Again, I want you to highlight it, but make a note that it's not a class test. It'll be rare that I do that, but it's the nature of this material.
So we're highlighting 29 to 33? No, only the one on the other side, 1 through 7.
Now, the previous page.
Okay, because I thought we were just highlighting.
Starting with 28, what says brokerage relationships in Florida. And then turn the page and 1 through 7. On 68, the bracket from lines 8 to 18. On page 66, line 8 through line 18. It identifies the 3 types of brokerage relationships allowed in this state of Florida. Bracket. Each one of those types of brokerage relationships have certain duties and responsibilities that make them different. We will look at that in detail as we go along here. What makes single agency different?
There's all.
Fiduciary. Which one would describe a relationship between the broker and the public, where the broker is there to facilitate but doesn't represent?
Non-representational.
Yeah, that would make sense, wouldn't it?
As a single agent, do I represent one side or the other in a fiduciary relationship?
Yes.
Yes.
As a transaction broker, do I have a fiduciary responsibility?
Yes.
Before we get into the discussion of the three of these, I want to do a little illustration. I need 2 volunteers. There's 1, there's 2. Front and center. Now, this requires the ability to follow directions. If you don't have the ability to follow directions, doesn't count. Okay, I would like for the 2 of you to face each other. I would suggest you might want to back up just a little bit. Now I want you to stick your arms straight out and make a fist. Get right up on top of each other's fist, but don't touch. What relationship is this?
Arm's length,
Arm's length. Between 2
clients.
adverse parties. I don't know if they're a client yet. Buyer, seller.
They're in a big house.
Okay. You're probably right. Okay.
Myself.
Who's the broker?
Back up just a little bit.
Hit him.
Now what?
Broker.
Obviously. It's not the answer. We're not talking about broker.
Single agent.
Single agent. Or
Seller.
the seller. How do you know that?
You face it.
And I've got the back to the buyer. Now, you know what I'm gonna do now, right? Am I gonna turn around 90 degrees or 180?
180.
Because I'm a single agent, in this case representing the seller.
Buyer.
Buyer. Now who am I?
Both.
I am a transaction broker. Because as a transaction broker, because I don't have fiduciary, I can represent one or both sides in the same transaction. I'm done.
Maximum?
Now who am I?
No representation.
A non-representation. I'm only here to facilitate the transaction. Thank you, ladies. Good job.
Encore.
Yes, sir.
You do not have a fiduciary with both parties?
As?
If you were just a single transaction, you have a fiduciary with either the seller or the buyer. As a transaction broker, you indicated you do not have a fiduciary between the two parties.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense to me, because of
Whoa,
course...
whoa, whoa. Who asked you?
Nobody asked.
Okay.
Nobody asked. You have a vested interest in both parties, or a fiduciary with both
Would
parties.
you like to hear what Mom has to say about it?
Yes.
Okay. All this is in the notes, we'll get to it. As a transaction, now, I gotta back up in history here. You had a license where?
New York.
You still have single agency, and you still have transaction broker, and you're gonna find out in the next 5 minutes, they're not the same.
Yeah, it's, there you
Well,
go.
it's actually easy. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. No questions, no comments, I'm not interested. As a transaction broker, I sound more like a dual agent. Why? In Florida, there used to be 3 brokerage relationships: single agent, dual agent, and transaction broker. A transaction broker did not have a brokerage relationship with them. They were simply there to help facilitate the transaction. Ergo, probably where the word transaction came from. Now, transaction broker, is there fiduciary there? No. Why? What word's missing?
But you're facilitating.
Agent. By the way, it's not transactional. There is no AL at the end. So, the state of Florida decided that 2 agents could not represent, one agent could not represent both parties, or actually, I'm sorry, one company couldn't represent both parties as single agents without violating their fiduciary duties to one or the other. So they changed, or actually eliminated, dual agency. So dual agency, which meant I could represent one side or the other side as in a fiduciary capacity. Cannot do that in today's world in Florida. So when they took dual agency away, it created a major problem. Because then that means we had 2 options: single agency or transaction broker, which is today's non-brokerage relationship. So they had to do something so that the same company could represent both parties in the same transaction. So what they did was, they took dual agency. They took the fiduciary part of it away. I'll show you what creates fiduciary. It's trust, it's confidence, obedience. That does not exist in dual agency, number 1. I said no questions. I'm not through. So now, they decided to take away the fiduciary part, but they left behind some of the confidentiality. As a transaction broker, I can represent both parties in the same transaction, one or the other or both. However, I have 3 confidentiality requirements. One, I cannot discuss price and terms with the other side unless so directed by the other. I cannot tell them what terms they will accept. I cannot discuss with the other side, even if I'm working with both, what the motivation is for them selling. Which used to be the three things in dual agency that had to be held in confidence. So now we have single agency that says that we can represent one party or the other in the same transaction as single agents, but cannot represent both. As a transaction broker, I can represent the buyer or the seller or both in the same transaction. And each one of those have certain duties and responsibilities, which are in the book, which we were talking about. The non-brokerage relationship is probably going to be more common in a for sale by owner situation or in non-residential. This company functions as a transaction broker. Because if the company had both sides, then we'd have to do what they call transition to transaction broker. Which means the buyer and seller would have to agree to allow us to continue in the transaction as a transaction broker. Yes?
I'm a little confused here. You earlier said the paramount is looking out for the public.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's no fiduciary,
Mm-hmm.
then technically you're not looking out for the public.
No.
You have.
I don't have to have fiduciary to have a responsibility
Well, you have-
to
you
look
have-
out for the public.
You have a confidence, and if you have a confidence, then your vision is skirted, and you're gonna be biased on one side or another.
Well, that's not the case. Because if you're representing both sides, you have to treat them equally. If I give the buyer a CMA, I have to give the seller a CMA.
When the situation arises again, because I wanted to interject at that time, I lost my chain of thought, I will bring up a scenario for you, and then you can give me your answer with that.
Yes, ma'am.
How does that affect, disclosure, like problems that the house has that
You
the
mean,
seller doesn't
you
want?
mean material facts?
Yes,
Everybody has to disclose material facts, including the owner of the property. So the brokerage relationship has nothing to do with the obligation to disclose material facts.
because I actually think I had a situation when I bought a house that was very sideways, but,
Shocking.
Good experience.
I just purchased a home and the agent represented us and the seller, so that's why I'm a little surprised to hear this.
Did they tell you how they were representing you?
As the
Did they
seller.
tell you they were a transaction broker or they were a single agent?
No, they didn't specify.
They had to have had to sign some documents, isn't it, indicating that they're accepting that she's.
You're in for a lot of surprises here. Thanks to Wednesday night.
Pretty much.
What someone's supposed to do, what they do.
See, I need to be apprised of everything to limit my liability and to that of my broker.
So if you do the things necessary under the law to protect the public, will you protect yourself?
Pretty much.
Okay, so sit back and relax.
But there are other loopholes, just to give you a quick.
Sit back and relax.
Okay. Yeah.
You're ready for brokers.
See, you gotta real quick learn that you're in Florida. And That hasn't got up here yet.
Oh, it got up there, it got up there.
Yeah, trust
We
me,
have
yes.
so many questions.
Bill, I have a question.
Yes.
When you were talking earlier about being a single agent, and we were discussing having the buyer and the seller, you said it wasn't legally possible, but if you're a transaction broker, then you can represent the buyer and the seller
In the same transaction.
in the same
Yes.
transaction, okay. That was my,
But do they need to disclose?
See, because, understand that at one point, when they wiped out dual agency, all you had left was single agency and transaction broker. The transaction broker at that point in time was what we call the no brokerage relationship of today. Would this statement be correct regarding the transaction broker? Transaction broker in reality doesn't represent either party. They're simply there to facilitate the transaction.
Correct.
So if I agree with that, raise your hand. The answer is, you must be sleeping.
is that brokerage rate?
Because we've said that as a transaction broker, you can represent one or both parties in the same transaction. So to say that they're simply there to facilitate the transaction, if you make that statement out there, a single agent you're competing with to get a listing is going to have you for lunch.
The non-representation is the one that's
Is what? Non-representation of what?
what you were, would be the answer,
To what?
what you just asked.
If I, can I represent both parties, one or the other or both in the same transaction?
No, being there to facilitate.
Yes, but just as being there as a facilitator, yes, you're absolutely right. That's the non-brokerage relationship.
When you have us here, as
Mhm.
an example,
Yes,
you step back.
when I step back, that was the non-brokerage relationship. I'm not in the relationship, but when I step up here between the two of you, I'm either here as a transaction broker with the ability to represent one or the other or both, or I was here, single agent, I was here, single agent.
But when you step back, what are you facilitating?
Yeah, I'm the non-brokerage. I'm there to help, but I'm not part of the relationship. Yes.
Would that be like an attorney there?
No, it would be like a broker who is functioning as, without representing them. Example, I have a buyer brokerage agreement with the buyer. I see it for sale by owner. I got two pieces of paper, a non-brokerage relationship and a commission agreement. Because the seller doesn't want representation. He wants to sell his house. But he's willing to pay 3%. Why? He thinks he's a listing agent. Because he knows that in the MLS, it's usually about 3% that the cooperating broker, the broker bringing the buyer, gets paid. So I'm not representing him in any way, so I give him the non-brokerage notice. I need something in black and white that says what?
How much you get paid?
If this deal flies, I get paid. That's a commission agreement. So that would be a practical example of where you might see my broker. What's more common between single agency and transaction brokers? Transaction broker. But you understand that as a single agent, if one of the agents in my 400 agent company takes the listing and one of the other 399 bring the buyer, we could not stay under single agency. And there's a term called transitioning to transaction broker, which means you're asking the two sides to back down to a transaction broker level so that we can continue facilitating the rest of that one deal. I'm always there to help facilitate the transactions. But that's my only function as a non-brokerage. As a single agent or a transaction broker, it's more than just helping facilitate the transaction. But you don't want to make a distinction between single agency and transaction broker, that the transaction broker doesn't actually represent anybody. What I'm trying to do, and I forgot the stupid password, I wanted to show you the wording in 475. Because if somebody challenges you, I want you to have a reliable source to ram down their throat. And I think 475 would probably be a sufficient source of justification. But the gentleman in the back is your customer from New York, who is knowledgeable of real estate in New York, and is confusing when he's here. Because you'll notice the type of questions he's asking you didn't think of. That's because he's coming from a different place than you are. It's better a lot of times when you know what when you get there. Nothing. But he's got the situation of this is New York and this is Florida. And you have to make that distinction. And not just in the classroom. Business work is different. How many contracts have you drawn up?
In Florida,
None. Yeah.
less than a handful.
Why?
I've been done out of area where I could write them up.
And probably most of them are written by the attorneys in it,
That's
right?
correct, yes.
Because see up there, normally they do a letter of intent, which is now handed to the attorney, and the agent goes home and doesn't have anything else to do.
That's a misnomer.
Well, wait till you see what you have to do here.
Yeah.
You're gonna think that's a cakewalk.
Wait till I spin Florida.
My point being is, when people come from different areas, and they've either been agents or they've bought and sold a lot of properties, their brain isn't in Florida. And it can be very confusing.
The legality is different. The premise is the same.
Right. Legality is different from this standpoint. As up north, since you still have single agency, a transaction broker is what we call a no brokerage relationship. The transaction broker is there to do exactly what its name sounds like, and that's simply to facilitate the transaction. But you have to understand here, you can't describe transaction broker in that way. Yes?
Dale, if you're interested, I pulled up the statute you were looking for, if you wanted to read it. I think this is the one you're looking for.
Find transaction broker.
Yes. Authorized 475.278, authorized brokerage relationships, presumption of transaction brokerage. Does that help?
In the state of Florida, as of July the 1st of 2008, the public has the right to assume that you're a transaction broker unless you indicate in writing otherwise. So she had to be working with a transaction broker because they didn't say anything, because they don't have to.
They don't have to disclose. Okay.
No, because the law says that the public can presume that you're a transaction broker unless you put something in writing. There is a disclosure form for transaction broker. Go down a little bit more and see if you can get to the
What part do you want me to look for?
definition of transaction broker,
Okay.
which should be
The laws are different.
Presumption of transaction brokerage. Transaction broker relationship.
That allows
Disclosing
these
all
big
facts,
real estate
presenting
companies to
limited
do that, you know,
confidentiality.
big real estate brokerages to represent two sides of the transaction.
You know what, go back to it again, when you got that for 75.
It's right here, the
So there's
transaction
no
broker, in the
conflict
back
of
of the book,
interest.
It's the
definition.
same thing. I take your house to sell it.
All the way back to 475.01.
A broker who provides limited representation to a buyer, a seller, or both in a real estate transaction, but does not represent either.
Yeah, you're represential and the other person is represential, right? So the buyer's, the buyer's agent is represential, the seller's agent is represential, and there's gotta be,
Right, but it's different, it's
We
different.
actually want to go back to the last,
right,
This one, the premise,
back to the
right.
looking out for the public, and that's what, oh shit. you can do
Well, there's
it.
no,
You
okay,
can't do it.
but why is there no, there's no fiduciary relationship for the broker to act, for the broker to act as a transactional broker, because at this point of time, it's not negotiating on anybody's behalf, it's not disclosing any information to either party is not entitled to any confidential information to be disclosed back and forth. So all it's doing is pushing paper. It's a paper pusher and a stamp. I mean,
I don't know.
that's what it sounds like.
Things you can do in a form, you can't do here. You can't take it that.
All right, this is 475.01. The legal definition of transaction broker. Go ahead.
Transaction broker means a broker who provides limited representation to a buyer, a seller, or both in a real estate transaction, but does not represent either in a fiduciary capacity or as a single agent. In a transaction broker relationship, a buyer or seller is not responsible for the acts of a licensee. Additionally, the parties to a real estate transaction are giving up their rights to the undivided loyalty of a licensee. This aspect of limited representation allows a licensee to facilitate a real estate transaction by assisting both the buyer and the seller, but a licensee will not work to represent one party to the detriment of other party when acting as a transaction broker to those parties.
That's why you have the three confidentiality: price, terms, and motivation.
You hire for the job, you hire.
Thank you. Well done.
Okay.
I just didn't want to start coughing in the middle of all that.
And with that, read pages 465 through 860.
First place you should start with page 67. That kind of sums up about 2/3 of the chapter in one chart.
We're bracketing that chart.
Yeah, and highlighting the column that says transaction broker. So the chart has a bracket, the duties of the transaction broker has a
What is that now?
Maybe Bob is a
page 67. It talks about the duties of each one, and the checks indicate which duties they have. I want you to highlight the list for transaction broker. And there's a section there where they give information about each one of those duties. There's a lot of similarities in transaction broker to dual agents. Okay, everybody have a good night. Remember, we're in third grade.
You still want us to do the entire chapter for?
Yeah.
Okay.